Well, good morning and welcome all my fans, both on Winning Ways and my tipping show, Canterpass Goodies, which showed another month's profit, and we'll give you all the information to sign on. We have a few vacancies. And we will give you all the information at the end of the video. But this video, as I do a monthly video, giving you some sort of ideas of what I see during the month. And we're going to be obviously talking about the July. Go through the July field and see what it works out and how I see the race being. And I'm also going to talk about the open bet. Now, if you go on to a Google search and look up the open bet, there is no such thing as what we know as the open bet. What the open bet is in Google search is a bet that hasn't been finalized or hasn't been completed. But the open bet is actually something completely different. And a bit of background, it was started basically by the big betting companies in the early 2000s. And what happened was that they decided to use the tote dividends, okay, to pay out people that won a tote bet with them, and they did not put the money through the tote, so the money never went through the actual tote. It was such an unbelievably clever scheme to defraud racing. Basically, that's what it was to defraud racing. Because what happens with the tote bets is the money goes through the tote. The tote then takes its commission, which is 12% or 25% in the depending on what type of bet it is. Normally wins and places and non-exotic bets are 12%, and the rest is 25%. Now the tote was the mechanism to fund racing. And by funding racing, I mean, well, you have to pay stakes. That's the main funding of racing. You then pay for the running of training centers, although trainers pay rent at the training centers, but the expenses are far higher than that. And it was promulgated early in the 80s, and I know that I was part of this, that the training centers would be paid, the rent would be paid by the rent of the boxes, for the rent of the stables and the running of the stables, and the tracks. The running of the tracks would be paid for by the racing clubs. Remember, there were racing clubs in those days that owned each of the race courses. Then what happened was that in 1998, the whole thing changed with Moleketi telling the racing industry they needed to publicize the racing industry and have some BEE involvement. And so Phumelela was formed. At about the same time, 2000, Hollywood became the first of the real big bookmakers, and they were minuscule in 2000, and I think the early 2000s, they had one shop which was at Springfield Park. And today, 2025, which is 25 odd years later, and everything's not exact, but I'm giving you the story. They are in the top 5 businesses in KwaZulu-Natal, Hollywood Bets, and they will say that no, it's because of sports betting and the bludgeoning growth of sports betting and soccer betting and this and that and the other. But the leg up came through the open bet. What happened was that they were taking tote bets for people, and the losing money was being pocketed, and the winners were paid out as to the tote dividends. Well, Phumelela in 2005 got extremely aggravated about this and could see what was coming, and they decided to take them to court. And there was a huge court case, and it wasn't just Hollywood, it was the big betting companies. And in those days, all right, the big betting companies, Keith Ho, World Sports Betting became very big, Hollywood Bets, and then there are a number of others. And they took them to court to stop them using the tote dividends to pay out their customers. They said that their argument, and this is where they had a fatal flaw, and I was basically a little involved in this whole thing, it was that, um, and I was quite sure that you couldn't use the argument that they used. And the argument was, well, it's our intellectual property. And this court case cost millions and millions of rand. And eventually it came down to a very simple judgment from the judge. And that was that actually it is your intellectual property until you publish it. Okay. So that meant that as soon as they published the dividends, it became fair game and anyone could use those dividends. Now, the argument should have gone, and I was convinced this was the right way to argue, was that we pay all the expenses out of the tote. The racing industry's expenses, which is, as I've just pointed out to you, everything from stakes, running of training centers, jockeys' fees, transport to the races, all these things are paid by the racing industry, by the operators. Okay, so I'll tell you where this is leading because it's quite fascinating. So what happened was that the big betting companies had a free ride, and for years we've been asking, and I certainly have asked them on many shows of mine, including Winning Ways when we did the show us the numbers. But they won't show us the numbers. They say, no, it's minuscule. We don't make that much money out of the tote and this and that and the other. But I've been told that's hundreds of millions of rands a month. And it's very simple to work it out. What happens? Any losing bet you keep, okay? Any winning bet, you pay out the tote dividend. Now, the tote works totally differently. What happens is that all the money goes into the pool. They take their commission, which is 12% or 25% in Big Sixes and all of that. And then they pay out the dividend from the rest. So basically, you're taking your commission and paying out the dividend. Now, if you know what punters are all about, punters lose 90% of the time on the tote. So 10% are winners and 90% are losers. But on the tote, the 10% that are winners are paid out the pool from the whole pool. What happens with the big betting companies is they take the whole lot of money and they only pay out the winners. So that it stands to reason they're making 90% profit, which is why it is such a huge amount of money. And really, they have raped this business. I can say no other way. They give back, okay? They give back in the form of sponsorship. And what do they sponsor? They sponsor trainers, jockeys, and racers, where they're getting this huge footprint and visibility in the racing industry. Where they're getting the money back from? My contention is from the open bet, from all the money they made out of the open bet. So you look at the biggest betting company in South Africa today. They own a football team in England. They have a worldwide footprint. They are absolutely enormous in 25 years. Now go back and look, Gold Circle in the early 2000s, which was the funding of this whole operation through the open bet. They were in the top 5 betting companies in KwaZulu-Natal. Today, they're not even close. Who's in the top 5? Hollywood Bets. And let me tell you, World Sports Betting is huge too, and so is Keith Ho Bet Exchange, and a number of others, and they've all made their money out of open bet. The open bet has been the pariah of racing. It has led to the downfall of racing. And I will argue with anyone. Anyone can come on a public debate with me about this, and the only thing they've got to do is show how much income they've derived out of the open bet from 2000 until today. How much income has been derived every year from the betting companies out of the open bet. Then we can have the discussion, but no one will do it. I can assure you, no one is prepared to do that. Okay, so let's now move on. The open bet is fascinating because it should have been nipped in the bud and racing would have been prosperous. But it never happened. They lost the court case, and as a result, the big betting companies have had a free ride since 2006, and every single bet that any one of you have placed with one of these big bookmakers, if it's a losing bet, it goes straight into their pocket. If it's a winning bet, they pay the total dividend. That is so unfair and so anti the racing industry and so anti whatever we've all stood for. So I can say no more, except that there have been some really, really bad administrators in this business who have let this run and let everyone get away with this. I'm horrified. I always have been horrified, and I'll stick by my guns. And as I've said, I'll debate anyone. But let's go into the July, because the July is a fabulous race. It's great fun. It's been part of my life from my only runner I ever had was 1975, 77. I had a horse called Sind that ran in the July. He was basically a sprinter miler. He never got the trip. He ran quite well. He ran about 7th or 8th. So, you know, I never had a runner after that. Unfortunately, I had a favorite scratched. It wasn't accepted in the final field. And I had the top 2-year-old in South Africa, Gold Tax, who ended up winning the Champions Cup when they eliminated him. To let Martin Sternberg's horse in. Martin Sternberg was one of the stewards of Durban Turf Club. So Colin Buckham was always on my no Christmas card list. Anyway, we get past these things. It's not the end of the world. No one died. Let's go and look at this July. So you have last year's winner, Oriental Charm, carrying top weight. He was extremely well weighted last year. And he's got good form. He'll be there or thereabouts, I would have thought, at the finish from draw 1. That's going to help him. See It Again, who I think is a cracking good horse. I have no confidence in the rider. I think that he'll be too far out of his ground, but I think that he'll be in the shake-up as well. So he definitely goes into the play. I'm reading them from top weight down because I can't go through on the race card. Gladiatorian, I think, is a huge player. If he gets a trip, this horse has got a fantastic turn of foot, and I expect him to be there or thereabouts. Royal Victory, I don't think he's the same horse as he was. I know his form is quite good, but he's got a lot against him. Certainly carrying a big weight with draw 17, got a lot to do. Purple Pitcher, this could be the dark horse of the race. His form is shocking, but he has shown glimpses of being reasonable. And I would believe that his jockey, Matsuyama, has got to get him up there and have him in the race. Atticus Finch, Summer Cup winner, got to have a chance, but I think he's got too much weight to carry. And I'm not sure that he gets 2-2. I think he might just get the 2,000. He was given a brilliant ride by Calvin Habib. And he has got the draw, which is going to help him. 8 on 18, to me, is a standout. I think he's the best horse in the race. I think he's good enough to carry 57 to beat this bunch. And I will be very surprised if he gets beaten. He is the right horse. The Real Prince, I can't have a sprinter miler. As I said, I trained one. I don't think he'll get the trip, although he's trained by an extremely good conditioner. Draw 5, I think he's going to drop off. So he's got a lot of ground to make up. Pomodoro's Jet, not for me. I think he's a sprinter miler. Okavango, don't think he's got the class. Madison Valley is the dark horse of the race, the other dark horse of the race. He has shown that he could dance with the best of them, and off the weight that he carries, Madison Valley, I think he's got a chance. Solique, well, 1900 winner. I know that some very shrewd people like this horse. I'm sorry, I don't think he's there good enough. Native Ruler, definitely not good enough. Confederate, I think he had his day, and he was very lucky to win the big race that he did, which is a classic. On My Honor, wow, this is an up-and-coming horse. He goes into the play, there or thereabouts. Rainbow Lorikeet, completely outclassed, I would have thought. My Best Shot, well, long time since a PE horse came and showed his best shot here, and I wouldn't have him, and no confidence there. And Immediate Edge, I thought he might be a July horse. Then he fluffed his lines. He ran a couple of bad races. Then he came back and won what I thought was pretty ordinary, a Jubilee. I'm not big in his camp, although I think he might finish in a minor placing. So, all in all, it's a most interesting July. I have the horse I bred, Military Command, running in the big juvenile colts race, which I won 2 years in a row. I think I'm the only trainer ever to have won it 2 years in a row. There was 2000 and 2001, Gold Tax, Highborn. So maybe 25 years later, Military Command will win it for me. I think that he's going to run a good race, and I really hope he does well for his owners and does well here. I think he's been a bit unlucky, and he's my player of the day. So, from me, James Goodman, I'm going to put up all the Canterpass goodie stuff. We have made a profit again this month. We have got a sheet if you'd like to see, and we made a nice profit, so it wasn't a bad month at all. And as I say, we have room for new subscribers. If you'd like to subscribe, you send us an email or WhatsApp and just let us know your details, and we will send you back the application form, which you'll sign and fill in, pay the application fee, and you'll be on board for July Day, where I'm going to have another few quite good horses that we're going to be having a look at. So, from me, James Goodman, Winning Ways and Canterpass Goodies. Have a great week.